All vote on one day. Anybody in agreement here on that?
Yeah.
Early voting really is a monstrosity. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Well, you know, it's been a new development in our state over the last 12 years. Not that long. Actually, 2005, 2006 is when they expanded early voting out to 35 days. So let me give you a proper introduction. My name is Chris Long. I'm the president of the Ohio Christian Alliance. How many of you are familiar with our work? Raise your hand. Very good. There are some voter guides here tonight. They're just a copy. The printed version is actually being picked up tomorrow. You will receive that. It's a full color. We have samples of what we passed out during the general election. We're heavily involved in this primary process this year. Probably the most we've been since 2006. That year, Ken Blackwell ran in a primary against Jim Petro. Ken was obviously the more conservative of the two. It was a very hotly contested primary. Ken did win the primary, although a very bad year for Republicans that year, if you remember, 2006. That's when Nancy Pelosi and gang took over the U.S. House of Representatives. Only one Republican won the statewide offices. That was Mary Taylor. It was a sweep of the Democrats on the remainder, and they took control of the Ohio House in 2006. And I think Ken, that was the worst loss for Republican in a long, long time, something like 70-some years. So it was a bad year all the way around. But we were heavily involved that year in the primary season. But this year, we are engaged. That's why you'll see the primary voter guide in the 14th Congressional District, the Ohio Senate District of 27, Mr. Frank LaRose running against Mr. Davenport. In fact, the Ohio Right to Life endorsed both Mr. Lynch and Mr. Davenport in those races, which is really unprecedented for the Ohio Right to Life to do that. Because in my tenure of the position I currently hold, their modus operandi is to basically go with what they consider to be the winning horse. They'll take a moderate who might be with them on one or two issues over someone who is staunch pro-life but doesn't really have much of a chance. That's their view, not my view. I think we ought to support the candidate that best represents our views and then just let the people decide. How many are with us on that? I think we're in a house of principled people here tonight. That's good. Okay. And by the way, this is a great crowd. I've spoken to about 20 Tea Party groups in the last 6 months on the subject of election reform and voter fraud. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. But I'm going to throw in there a little bit of the primary season. We did host a candidate forum last night, and it aired on 640 WHLO, a Clear Channel station out of Akron-Canton area. Broadcasts over most of the district. Also, not only the 14th Congressional, but the 27th Senate seat with Caleb Davenport and Frank LaRose. Mr. LaRose declined. He called me personally. Frank is actually, he used to come to a lot of Tea Party meetings back in 2010. That was going to be a big Republican sweep, and of course it was. And he came out to a lot of Tea Party events at the time, and but we started to get red flags about Mr. LaRose when his survey results came back. And my staff turned to me. By the way, we have one of the most comprehensive surveys that we submit to state and federal candidates than any other organization. Let me give you an example. It's a 5-page survey of the state, and it's a 7-page survey to members of Congress. You say, well, do you really get anybody filling these things out and turning them back? Yeah. The Speaker of the House had time to fill his out and send it back for the primary, Mr. Boehner. So yeah, we do get a very good response rate over the years. Now for the primary, obviously those who were not in a contested primary, they'll get a survey later in the summer for the general. And we have a good, a great response rate really of those who fill out the survey. Why is that important? Well, like you, before I got involved with all this, how was I to know who these people were and what they stood for? When I was pastoring a church, a voter guide showed up, a stack of them, a short stack of them, pastoring a small inner-city church. You showed up 2 weeks before, a week before the election. I was glad to get them. I don't know who dropped them off, but I was glad to get them and made them available to the congregation. My encouragement was that people educate themselves on the issues and then vote for the candidate that best aligns with their worldview, the principles that they stand with. So we did that when we were pastoring for a number of years, and then I ran for office in 2000, 1999 in city office in 99, and then the state office in 2000 in the old Ohio House 47. Bob Otterman was running. He's a Democrat from that area, long-time established Democrat, mostly a Democrat district, and I was a Republican running. But that was the year where DOMA and our marriage laws were a debate on the national and state level. So as a concerned clergyman, I ran on the platform on marriage, on traditional marriage, and on life issues, but also fiscal issues as well, taxes on families and that sort, strong national defense. Did not win the election, but was contacted by then the Christian Coalition chapter of Ohio. So we're looking for an executive director. We like the way you filled out your survey. And then they explained to me, I said, well, you know, I think I might be interested. They said, well, it's not a paid position. You know, have to raise your own funding. I said, I understand that. Okay, let me prayerfully consider it, and I did, and one thing led to another. That was in 2002. In 2004 was, of course, really a bellwether year for politics here in Ohio. I don't know if we'll ever see that as we saw in 2004 here in Ohio. Although every presidential year it seems like the battleground state of Ohio is always in the mix and will continue to do so, even though we've lost some congressional seats. That time we had, do we have 18 then? What do we got now, 14? Wait, 16? We should know this, Matt.
I know I'm the 14th.
You're the 14th. That you know. Let me see here. That's right, because I'm thinking my old congressional district was the 17th, and that's Tim Ryan. And he's all over the way in Youngstown, but I'm in Summit County. I'm still in his district. Figure that out, right? I love the way they gerrymander this district. That's fun, isn't it? You don't move, but your district does. And in fact, Frank LaRose was my state senator in 2010. That was the last time we voted for state senator, just to find out that the boundary line moved about 2,000 yards, and I'm no longer in the 27th Senate District. So, in being heavily engaged in what I'm doing, I should have known that, but I didn't. I did know the district lines were redrawn. Mostly probably paying attention to congressional lines, not thinking too much about my state Senate seat. Anyways, no longer in the 27th Senate District. And lamenting that, let's see, Tom Sawyer is now my state senator. Remember former Congressman Tom Sawyer, right? Former mayor of Akron, Tom Sawyer. Actually, Frank LaRose says he likes to pal around with Tom Sawyer. Let me tell you about Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer couldn't even bring himself to vote against partial birth abortion when he was a U.S. Congressman. There were a number of Democrats that joined with the Republicans to outlaw that heinous and horrendous act. He could not bring himself to even do that. I sat down with my congressman at the time. I presented to him material. We prayed for him. Actually, it was an interesting time to be in his office. It was the week that Ken Starr's report was delivered to Capitol Hill. So, you know, it was a very sober moment, I think, for most Democrats at that time, because it was very serious. The impeachment charges that were moving forward and all that, and you had a Speaker of the House who was going to move forward with the House managers to formulate the articles of impeachment, which they did, and they impeached Mr. Clinton on perjury in office. Folks, we either believe that we're a land of laws or we don't.
Amen.
The rule of law, right? I'll never forget, everybody remember Henry Hyde's speech on the U.S. House floor about the rule of law? I still have that transcript. That is powerful. This lady back here, she remembers it well. We really should put that up again sometime because it was powerful. There are some glowing moments sometimes that come out of that chamber. People making stands and saying some things. Sometimes they're not heard because it's in the wee hours of the morning on C-SPAN, right? So you were smiling. You were probably up all night watching Ted Cruz, weren't you? Come on, right now. And you're wondering, how does he do that? Doesn't he have to go to the bathroom? I've gone 4 times the last hour in the middle of the night. How does he do that? Right? I don't know how he does it. How many watched the marathon with Ted Cruz? That was, and Rand Paul. Really, it was inspiring, wasn't it? so inspiring that the Democrats